I gotta be honest, I read a lot more murder mysteries while we were on our honeymoon than it's not even, it's true.
We're nice and warm and cozy. It's winter, it's snowing outside.
It's...
He's dressed like a lumberjack.
snowing outside. Snowing outside.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Book Date. Welcome to our big comfy couch. It is a nice rainy day outside, so we are nice and cozy on our couch. Today we are going to do our winter wrap up.
These are all the books that we read, so we're gonna let you guys know which ones we liked, which ones we didn't like, and which ones we think you should actually read.
I'll go first. So I started this book last year, finished it on our honeymoon in January. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the prequel to the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. Huge fan of Hunger Games, was a huge fan of this book right up until like 3/4 in, and the last quarter of this book just kind of fell apart. Completely lost interest. Characters literally just like disappeared. There was not a lot of conflict resolution in the ending of this book, and I kind of was left kind of like, did I miss something? I was going back from pages and rereading, trying to figure out if there was some key items I missed, but like, no, it kind of just ended very blah.
I gotta be honest, when you were reading that book, I kept hearing you talk about it. It's like, oh, I remember how much I love this series. I remember how much and then it's true, by the time we got to our honeymoon, you didn't talk about that book at all anymore.
Yeah, I had wanted to finish reading it in 2023. We had like 3 days left, and I had literally just, you know, about 1/4 of the book left. I'm like, I'm gonna breeze through this. We're on vacation. Yeah, no, it took me forever to finish it. It started off so strong, and then the ending just literally fell off a cliff, and there was no ending. I know this is like the villain origin story to President Snow in Hunger Games, and I thought that by the end of this book, I would learn to like hate him and understand why he became so bad. I don't get it.
That's usually, I feel like, what happens when series like these, series that do really, really, really well, and then the author maybe takes like a hiatus, maybe writes some other stuff that doesn't sell as well, or that doesn't write a book at all. Maybe they take a break, and then eventually 10 years later, they come back and you're like, you ran out of money. Would you recommend it?
For Hunger Games fans, I think it helps understand the lore, and it gives backstory to some of the things, and there are callbacks to things during the Hunger Games that I definitely thought was worth it, but I don't think it was enough of a origin story for the villain that we hated so much in Hunger Games.
This is actually one of the first books that I read this year. I actually started it the night before our wedding. So I read about 3 hours of it, or I got about maybe 20-30% of the way into it that same night just because I couldn't sleep.
He was so nervous.
Yeah, it's the Elon Musk autobiography. Pretty awesome. It's written by the same writer as the Steve Jobs autobiography, which is actually...
Love that one.
I love that one. It's probably one of the best not autobiography. It's one of the best biographies ever written, I think. The Steve Jobs ones. It was a huge bestseller, and I think this is the project that author has been working on ever since then. It almost has a similar cover. You know, it's almost like if it was another installment in a series going after one of these figures that drives the world.
That was Elon Musk saying, "Get me that same guy."
Probably. So yeah, so the author actually got to follow around Elon Musk, had to multiple interviews with him. Basically, in a way, it was like a friend of Elon Musk for a little while. The book, I have to admit, it's not as exciting, even though Elon Musk actually is doing bigger things than Steve Jobs ever did. But the thing is that, yeah, but the thing is that Elon Musk is just not as, he's just not as charismatic or funny as Steve Jobs was. He's also just not as he's eccentric, but Steve Jobs was just kind of weird. Like, he was just a hippie, you know what I'm saying?
Quirky?
Yeah, he was very quirky. Elon Musk is not that quirky. Basically, I think it was awesome. It was long. It really lets you into this figure that is actually more influential than you even think that he is. Like, if you think Tesla is the biggest thing he's done,
no, he's done a lot of stuff that's not mainstream.
Yeah, it's not. It's also, SpaceX is probably more influential. The internet service that he's providing.
He's providing internet service?
Yeah, it's through all the satellites that he's launching. He basically, right now, SpaceX is actually a lot more successful than you think it is. It actually is dominating anything that involves with space, SpaceX actually has more influence than any government agency. It's so yeah, it's pretty insane. So yeah, I did enjoy it, but I did feel that it was a little bit drier than something like the Steve Jobs autobiography. Like Steve Jobs was a person that was a lot more interested in like art and literature and poetry and all these other things, and that made its way into the biography because it's following this person around. Elon Musk is a lot more analytical, he's a lot more practical, so there's not as much art or flair, I would say, in his life. Anyway, Elon Musk.
Going from that to something way less inconsequential, I read a lot of romances. Why? Because we were on our honeymoon, we were in our wedding period, and I wasn't gonna read anything that wasn't a romance.
I gotta be honest, I read a lot more murder mysteries while we were on our honeymoon than it's not even, it's true. I didn't kill anyone, if that's what you're thinking.
So I read this on our honeymoon in like 2 days. Super short read. It is Christina Loren, The Soulmate Equation. Basically the story is about Jess. She's a single mother and she is, you know, having a hard time finding love again. She and her friend come in contact with a CEO of a brand new dating app that basically tries to connect people by DNA with
Didn't you
their
read a book that
soulmates.
was just like this?
Yes.
The One,
Yes.
which I never read.
That one was much better.
Okay.
I feel like this is like starting to get overdone. I feel like
No, it's definitely overdone, for sure, 100%.
Overdone, not overdone. I did really like this. Well, when they come into contact with the CEO guy, well, guess what happens? When her and her friend submit their DNA, the main character... No, the main character matches
With the CEO.
With the CEO.
That's what I just said.
But like the highest compatibility of DNA
Girl,
that's
you're
ever
rich
been
now.
recorded by this company.
She's so rich.
So now, like, do they stay together because they actually like each other, or because they kind of feel forced to, because it's the most successful match this company's ever had? Meanwhile, conflict of interest, he's the CEO.
So he probably rigged the results.
I don't know. Let's find out. And you guys should read it and find out. Nothing in this novel that really stood out to me as like a moment where 5 years from now I'm gonna remember, ooh, that's right, that book, that one got me. It was pretty middle of the road. Sweet, but rather forgettable. Could probably already imagine exactly how this book ended. And then another thing I really didn't like was, as usual with a lot of these romances, the climax was only due to some sort of stupid miscommunication that could have been resolved with one conversation, one text message, one phone call. But, you know, that's not how it is in most romances, and I am not a big fan of that. But anyway.
How are you gonna have that moment where both of them realize that they're being stupid and they need to run through the streets in a hurry to meet back at the park that they met at and kiss for the first time and then reconcile?
You should write a romance novel.
God. I finished reading Iron Flame.
Okay.
Okay, fine, I'll be honest. Okay, it's not bad. Definitely didn't like Iron Flame as much as I liked. And the fact that I had to say that I liked Fourth Wing is just a little, it's a little depressing. Just slightly, nah, I'm gonna be honest. Iron Flame, on the other hand, though, I feel like it has a lot of the DNA of the first one. I feel like it's, for the most part, extremely similar. I feel like the pacing is also there. I feel like it's also very entertaining and all that stuff. But I feel like the author fell into the trap that a lot of authors fall into when they write a sequel or a follow-up, which is that she felt like, okay, I already wrote a pretty big universe, a pretty big story with a lot of scale, with a lot of big events. How do I make this bigger? She went for it, and unfortunately, it's just too convoluted. It's the magic system, which I had a pretty good grasp on it in the first book, pretty easy to understand. By the second one, man, halfway through that book, it falls apart to the point that I'm like, I'm gonna have to reread this to really understand how it works.
I don't agree.
I'm gonna have to get, you don't agree?
I don't think it fell apart in the way you
I honestly do not understand even, I can't even remember what it was that they were trying to accomplish or do to resolve the issue.
They were trying to build up the...
You're making such a great case for it. You don't remember what it was.
What is the word?
It wasn't it wards? It was wards, right? Okay.
They're trying to build up the wards again. For me, what I didn't understand is where the wards were in the first place. In some places they were still standing, and in some places they weren't. It got a little fuzzy for me.
It got a little fuzzy. It was a lot of characters, more characters.
I'm used to that though. I can handle that. I don't think it was more characters than like
I'm just saying that I think for such a large, massive book, the complexity I don't think was conveyed either slowly enough or clearly enough for it to not get in the way of enjoying the book, because I enjoyed the first one a hell of a lot more than the second one, even though the second one has even bigger set pieces, even cooler moments maybe, but I just feel like it was all so convoluted that it kind of clouded a lot of the cool things that happened.
And I did understand, like I spoke to a lot of friends about it, and everyone's kind of main issue with the book wasn't necessarily the lore and what was going on with the world building, but the interpersonal relationship between Violet, the main character, and Xaden, and how she was kind of very wish-washy and like, I can't trust him, but I love him. I can't trust him, but I love him. And it was a lot of back and forth.
But that's honestly, that was to be expected, mainly because of the fact that it's like, if by the end of, spoiler for the first book, if by the end of the first book they end up together and then you go to write another romance fantasy action book, how do you create sexual or romantic tension if the two people are already together? You know, it's like, how are you supposed to do that? So what she does is that she just kind of makes their relationship complicated.
Right, but she could have shaved that down a little bit. It was a lot of monologues with the main character talking about whether or not she should, trust him again. Yeah. I think that could have been shaved down a little bit. I think the book could have been a little more concise, but I enjoyed every freaking second of it, okay? But the ending! Oh my god!
I almost don't remember. Oh! To further complicate that love story. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the ending was fantastic. I don't want to, any spoilers. It's a little too new, so read it, guys.
Ooh,
you'll enjoy it.
I remember this now. Yeah.
But will you read the third one that supposedly is coming out December 1st of 2024 this year?
I'm guessing we're gonna have to talk about it. So, yeah.
Oh, you wouldn't read it just because you're interested in finding out what happens? No,
probably not.
You would skip over it?
Yeah, it's just not, again, it's like, I don't have a problem with it, but it's not written for me. Why keep banging my head against that wall?
We'll see.
There is a lot that I like
I think he enjoys it a lot more than he lets on.
Next.
On that note, I read yet another romance on our honeymoon, and this was coincidentally another STEM romance, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
That's a genre? Like they had to do that?
It's like a sub-genre. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I'm just gonna come out and say it, this was way too cheesy, way too cringy for me. I can see why this is one of the most popular romances of the past few years. I get it because the steam was absolutely spectacular. The chemistry was fantastic, which is why I actually gave it 2 stars instead of like none or 0, or 1. However, considering the fact that these characters are supposed to, this story is set in one of the top universities and these characters are among the smartest people in the country, if not the world, they acted so ridiculously and so unbelievably stupid. It was just completely unbelievable for me that these esteemed, very smart, adult human beings would act so silly and ridiculous.
They didn't even come up with a new cover. Like, you have that same cover in like yellow. This is
the first one though. This is like the first one that she came out with, and now there's like Love on the Brain, Love Theoretically. I did ultimately read it all the way through. I didn't DNF it. I wanted to find out what happened to the characters. I understand the appeal for quirky characters, but this was just too much. These are adults in a very professional setting, acting like not even high schoolers, middle schoolers. If you like really quirky, really silly, really low stake romances that are kind of just frivolous and funny with a lot of steam, you'll definitely like it, but it's just not for me. But the cover's adorable.
All right, so There's a book that you have on your bookshelf that has been staring me in the face ever since we moved into this house that I never read. And that's like the Percy Jackson series. Mm-hmm. So I actually went back, read that one.
That's cute.
It's nice.
It's nice.
It's nice. It's like, I have a feeling that it's either you were a Harry Potter person or you were maybe Percy Jackson.
I think a lot of people were both.
I think a lot of people were both, but I feel like there's some people that maybe like Percy Jackson more and they just spent their entire life screaming at the whole world. It's like, why don't you like what I like more than this other thing that you like?
Percy Jackson was pretty big though. Not
It's pretty
as
big.
big as
It's
Harry
not as big
Potter,
as Harry Potter though. But no, I really,
those movies were fantastic.
Yeah, but the book is actually, it's funny, it's charming, there's a lot of action adventure in it, and moves super quick. I can totally see that it's written in a way for younger kids to understand, but it also has like so much, I don't know, it's kind of like what we were talking about in a previous video that I kind of wanted to get back into reading more fantasy, a little bit more wonder and adventure, things that aren't so grim and dark, but it still has enough, you know, conflict and stakes and all that stuff to make it meaningful. And also it's got a lot of like Greek mythology, which is I think why they got so big in the first place, because that's people love that. So
were you guys more Harry Potter kids or more Percy Jackson kids or both? Let us know in the comments.
All right, you want to do your whole stack?
Yes. So I just finished reading the Crazy Rich Asian series, and let me tell you, these were fantastic. Mind you, not 5-star, not 5 stars. I have a little, you know, inkling on each of them of why they're not 5 stars, but definitely 4 stars and definitely worth the read. So we've got Crazy Rich Asians, we've got China Rich Girlfriend, and Rich People Problems, all by Kevin Kwan. This is just straight up soap opera goodiness.
I have to admit, the whole time that you were reading these, I've heard you laugh and cackle more than any other book that you've ever read. It's like every single time I'm passing by, I'm getting dressed or something, all I hear is, oh my God. No, he's not. No, he's not. Oh, he's doing it. Oh my God.
They were just so splendidly outrageous. Granted, these are marketed and this says these are complete satire, which makes it even more fun. That way you can be as outrageous and as ridiculous, and it's, you know, it's completely appropriate because at the end of the day, it's a satirical representation of the very rich people in Asia, mainly in Singapore, but then we go to Thailand, we go to Shanghai, we go to Hong Kong. Basically, it starts off in New York with a couple, Rachel and Nikki, and Rachel follows Nikki home to Singapore, where she finds out that she's part of one of the richest families in the world. The books kind of veer off into just this mirage, this cast of characters that all have their own plot lines of what they're trying to do. We've got rags to riches stories. We've got people who have, you know, invested in incorrect stocks and have lost all their money and are just trying to fake the fact that they're rich. Some of them just horrible, spoiled, rich brats that get what's coming to them. These books are so dazzling, so sparkly, like fantastic outfits, fantastic scenery. Like they were so descriptive in a way that was just, oh my gosh, can I just jump in? I want to go to Singapore now. I want to go and I want to be on a private jet and I want to live in a mansion and I want to have all this fantastic clothing. I probably learned more about fashion in these than I have in my entire life. Now, the reason why I didn't give the first one 5 stars when I finished it was because the conflict at the end was missing, which ended up happening more later on in the series. But I didn't realize that the series in itself, they were also interconnected. I thought they were kind of just like one-off stories set within the same universe, but no, it's actual continuations. This is the story. However, because the first one didn't have that conflict, didn't have that, you know, finish that I really, really wanted, I had to give it a 4 stars. It kind of just veered off into a new storyline that was then continued in the second and the third one, which as a whole, now I can understand it. So maybe individually they're 4 stars because again, there's satire, it's funny, it's not too deep, it has its moments, but maybe as a series in general, maybe I can give it like a 5 stars.
Okay, so this is getting now into all the murder that I read on our honeymoon / when we came back. All right, so first up is Mother-Daughter Murder Night. Not a big fan of the little macaroni, the little circular yellow macaroni. What is that? Oh, the Reese Witherspoon book club books. I think I've read maybe 3 or 4 books from that book club, and I don't think I've liked any of them, except maybe for this one. I'm not saying that I'm in love with this one. I'm just saying I liked it as much as a middle of the line book. I think it was an entertaining story. It's kind of like this murder mystery that this daughter, mother, and grandmother kind of all take on, and they live in this small town, and it's just them trying to solve this murder mystery that the daughter is semi-involved in. The grandmother is really kind of like the star of the book. It's kind of like this, she used to be a developer back in Los Angeles. It's kind of like this boss lady, like super domineering, can do almost anything. It's like unstoppable and all that. So it does have its charm. I just don't think it's anything to write home about. But I gotta say, coming from the Reese Witherspoon book club, something I'm not a fan of, this is probably the best one that I've read so far.
So why is it that you keep picking them up if each of them so far beforehand has been a disappointment?
The cover, and because of the fact that it kind of reminded me of a Southern's book club's guide to killing vampires. It's kind of like this satirical, funny title with like kind of like a funny premise. Like if you give me the premise in the cover and in the title instantly, and it's an interesting premise, like I'll read the book. Gotcha. Just to see if the premise actually pans out, if it's actually gonna be a mother-daughter murder night. Like I want to see if it's actually gonna be that, you know, or if it's just a joke.
My favorite book of 2023 and one of my favorite books now of all time was Next Year in Havana, and that has macaroni on it.
It does have the macaroni. Yeah.
And I've read some fantastic books from that book club, and I love Reese Witherspoon. All right, what's your last one?
Whatever. And then the last one is The River We Remember. This one I actually liked. This one's another murder mystery thriller. It's basically set in the 1950s in Minnesota. It's a county sheriff trying to solve a mystery that kind of involves the entire community because of all the ties that this small town has. I really like this one simply because all the characters are like real people that have gone through it, people that are really struggling to make themselves better, make a shitty situation or a, you know, crappy hand that they've been dealt, and they're trying to make the best of it. And I really admire and like all those characters that don't create their own problems, characters that have problems thrown on them and they're just trying to deal with them as best as they can. So those are the kind of characters that I like. This novel had a lot of those characters, had a lot of really strong characters that you can admire for different reasons. So I'm actually gonna say, even though I'm not into this genre, even though I'm not into the murder, mystery, thriller, drama genre, The River We Remember, I like it a lot. I did like that one. Also, a lot of the characters were like involved in World War II. And you know, as a guy, if any book has the Roman Empire or World War II, like we're probably gonna like it. So yeah, and so it deals a lot with like the aftermath of World War II, since a lot of the characters were in some way involved in that conflict. Like almost all the men in this book were veterans of that war. Instantly, you know, you gravitate to these characters because it's like, wow, these characters have been through something.
Yeah. Now
we're gonna get to the part. If you had to recommend just 2 books from all the ones you've read, which ones would you recommend?
There's 3 of them.
Okay.
It's all 3. Read the Crazy Rich Asian series, guys. It's
You
great.
don't need to explain why. We got it. We got it. Okay, if I had to recommend any, it would probably be the Elon Musk autobiography. If you're into something that's nonfiction, you are trying to read something that it maybe is fiction or drama or something like that, I would definitely probably recommend The River We Remember. I think that's probably the best book I've read so far, and that's coming from a person that is not into that genre. But anyway, I actually would like to know so far in the year, especially books that are new, maybe released in this calendar year so far in the last like 2-3 months, what books have you guys read that you actually like, so that maybe I could add that to my to be read. So put it in the comments.
Thank you guys for watching Book Date. I hope you subscribe to our channel. Please make sure to like this video and leave a comment. Tell us what you're currently reading. Cheers guys, and we'll see you in the next one.